So I was granted an in-person audience with Barack Obama here in Sarasota, Florida this afternoon, just 5 days out from Election Day, and several points about Senator Obama and his ideas sort of were striking to me from that interview. For one, there are a couple 100 million people freaking out about this election. Barack Obama does not seem to be one of them. He seemed to me to be supernaturally relaxed. Also noteworthy, hints of a quasi-New Deal possibly brewing for the 21st century. A lot of talk about reinvesting in America's infrastructure. He was also blunt about the severe problems in Afghanistan, a fight that will extend far beyond the battlefield, in his words. And Obama explained why he sometimes seems to pull punches on the Republican Party and conservatism. He will blast the policies of George W. Bush and John McCain in one breath, but steer clear of criticizing the party generally. You get the feeling that he wants to govern in the sort of 62-38 way, not in the 51-49 way. So, what to make of the candidate on the verge of the biggest day of his professional life? Still cooler than the other side of the pillow? Probably wise to solicit analysis from the man who called the 2000 Gore-Bush race, quote, shakier than cafeteria jello. Joining us now is Dan Rather, who is the managing editor and host of Dan Rather Reports on HDNet. Mr. Rather, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Glad to be here.
Did any of Barack Obama's responses in this interview tonight strike you as remarkable?
Yes, Rachel. I thought the whole interview was remarkable in its own way. To get a candidate this late in the campaign to appear that relaxed, that much in control of himself, and frankly, to give more direct answers than is normal this late in the campaign. I want to note that John McCain, in his more recent interviews, has been more like the McCain of 2000 than any other time during this race. But when he talked of the need of doing something about the electric grid problem in this country, which has been a big issue in the Silicon Valley and with a lot of other people in recent days, I mark that. Also, his understanding of the Afghanistan situation, at least to the extent that there's no way that we can accomplish our overall mission in Afghanistan without reducing the opium production in that country. That is the absolute key to Afghanistan. We're not talking about eliminating opium production, but a significant reduction. There's no way that we can make much headway in Afghanistan without doing that, and he expressed that he understood that. Those two things stood out to me, plus the fact that he continues very much on his basic message, which is, I'm normal, I'm okay, you'll be safe with me, and directly appealing to the independent and swing voters who, what they decide to do over this weekend, when the late deciders decide, may indeed decide this race. For all of those reasons, I thought it was a remarkable interview.
He did really deliberately refuse to take my bait about talking about the Republican Party and conservatism in general as a problem for the United States, as something that ought to be sort of discredited so that America can move on from conservative politics. He deliberately left that aside. I wondered if you saw in his acknowledgement of the difficulties and some of the things he wants to work with the electric grid, with Afghanistan, with Pakistan, with some of these other issues. If you saw a hint of confidence that he is going to be president, that he ought not try to crusade on these issues, but rather be sober and a little humble about what could be accomplished, because he's going to be the guy trying to accomplish things in those fields.
Well, Rachel, that's insightful, and I think all true. It's no secret that he and his staff have been studying the early days of the Franklin Delano Roosevelt administration in the early 1930s. And what he obviously has in mind is a combination of FDR's New Deal and John F. Kennedy's New Frontier. And I thought among the other things that stood out to me was his understanding that by, for example, developing infrastructure projects, these are construction projects that will create jobs, but also people can see them. And the late Lyndon Johnson, President Johnson, once said to aspiring political candidates, listen, when you get in, build something that people can see. When they drive past a park or a schoolyard or a new bridge or a road, people see it, they know you had a hand in developing it, and they'll have it in mind in the next election. All of that, I think, showed once again that in Barack Obama, whether you agree with his policies or not, that he's on top of his game. Let's face it, Rachel, we have in this campaign, you may disagree, two people who are qualified to be president. clearly qualified to be president in John McCain and Barack Obama. Obama, starting from way behind and being an unknown, has had this constant problem of convincing people that he's up to the challenge of being president. And I think every time he appears on a program such as this, particularly with an interview such as you conducted with him, he helps himself get across that message. I'm safe, I'm all right, I will be okay as president, and I do have some fresh ideas.
Dan Rather, managing editor and host of Dan Rather Reports on HDNet. Thank you very much for coming on, and happy birthday as of midnight tonight, Dan.
Thank you, Rachel. Thanks a lot.